Hi everyone, welcome to Webinars with RankSense. Welcome back for some of you. I'm Brittany, as you may know, and I'll just be going through the chat and answering some of your questions. Today we're joined by Jean-Christophe Chouinard from Seek, and he's going to show you how to use requests and Selenium to automate SEO tests. So without further ado, let's get started.
Awesome. Hey, hey JC, how are you? How's it going?
Very good. Thanks.
How are things in Australia? You know, this is our first one, hopefully of many.
It's very good. Very good country, Australia. Moving all the way from Canada to Australia. Very great place. Seek an amazing company to work with. Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
No, it's great. You know, here I'm in New Jersey, 7 p.m. We were blessed with a foot of snow today, and fortunately, my kids are teenagers now, so I don't have to do the shoveling anymore. You know, so that was a great break for me today.
Yeah, I don't miss shoveling. I used to be the shoveling pro. Now I'm in the middle of summer right now.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. It's must be awesome for you right now there. So, a couple of minutes, you know, a brief introduction, you know, about your journey in terms of, you know, what you were doing before. Sounds like you had a lot of experience on the job space, driving traffic from search, and your motivation moving to Australia, and what got you to get excited about Python.
So yeah, I started the SEO in a marketing agency, and then when I moved to a job board in Canada, so I started working for Jobilico, and I started facing like really big number of pages compared to what I was used to. So we started working with millions of pages, and then you can get quite difficult at managing all this data, and basically that's to fix this kind of data problem that I went into Python. And as for moving to Australia, I just saw this great opportunity. So it's my second time living in Australia, and Seek has always been the job board to go to get the all the jobs. So it's an amazing platform, and yeah, I saw the opportunity to work with the Seek team for the Jora.com site, and yeah, and now here I am.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great. And you came to Python, you know, but you learned R before, right? From our conversation, right? How did that happen? And then, you know, why it sounds like R was your first language, and what got you excited about R, and why did you decide to extend your knowledge into Python, right? How was that journey?
So yes, first thing I did is I I saw these tutorial that by Distilled on showing how to make SEO A/B testing with causal impact, and they then I started reading about it, and I saw that the package was built mostly for R. So I started looking into R. I made a small tutorial, and then I saw some videos that Vincent Terrasi has made on this, and he was doing quite amazing stuff with machine learning. So I got into R, but at some point I felt like there was not enough resources to help me keep growing in R. Like not enough people are using it in the SEO community, and I started finding some tutorial that Paul Shapiro and J.R. Oaks were sharing, and that was really exciting. So, and then when I tried to use the Google Search Console API, I did it first with R, but then when I wanted to build on top of it to make the API call more complex, I thought I was like a little bit limited with the packages that existed. So then I started learning Python because these was one of the resources that Google was actually sharing resources on. So that's why I went into Python. and then I just got hooked. It's like I just
You got
decided.
beaten. You got beaten by the snake.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
So
no, it's interesting you mentioned that because casual impact's great for A/B running A/B tests and doing and that package that is all there's also a version of it in Python. So you the same casual impact package. There is somebody that ported it to Python as well, so you have the same one, right?
yes, I think you've made a tutorial using the
Yeah,
causal impact. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Somebody in my team they did that one, did the tutorial on using the Python version. And give us a context because we want to give you. I know we have you have a lot of content to go through. What is the context of this scripts you want to share with us? And Brittany, you can give your presentation to JC so we can start getting the context and start
So yeah,
walking through.
I'll share my screen. Let's look into this. So yes, the context is I'm using Request and Selenium to prevent SEO errors. So Selenium, what it is, it's a browser automation tool that you can use with other programming languages, not just Python. And Request is basically a Python module that was built to handle HTTP requests. So for those who don't know what an HTTP request is, it's basically the communication between your browser and the web server. So basically you're making a GET request to ask for the HTML to be rendered into your browser. You could also use a POST request to for example, post status on social media or post your name or an email in a form, for example. So the reason why I'm using these two is because they're basically the building blocks of the web right now. And as you start playing with Request and Selenium, you start understanding a little bit better how a web crawler works, how rendering works, and all this knowledge that you get help you understand the challenges in building a web crawler, for example. And once you start understanding those challenges, you can start understanding a little bit better what Google might have gone through when they started building their own web crawler. And that really helps you understand the context of everything in SEO. And I think it's they really help. Like learning a programming language is really good for SEO because you understand what web developers have done in the past. And yeah, so this is why I'm talking about those two packages today.
Awesome, that's great. And we have Elias as well here as the guest.
Oh, cool.
He's built an amazing Python library, advert tools. That he has a built-in crawler as well. So Elias, if you want to join us in the panel, let us know, and I'd like to put you in the spot there, and we you don't need to turn your camera on if you don't want to, but um, let Brittany know and she'll bump you in. So JC, you want to, yeah, want to continue.
Yeah, so I can continue. So yeah, Elias has been an awesome crawler, really easy to use, open source. In this case, I'm not using it because, in fact, I'm trying to go straight into the request because this is where you actually learn the most by doing it yourself from scratch. But if you look at the advert tools library, actually, you're going to understand how Elias built it. And that's actually quite a good school to look at Elias codes because
The
they're like
application,
well commented and everything.
yeah, the application, how to use it. So yeah, let's go to it, JC, right? So
Yeah.
what is yours?
So the first step to run everything, you can get the code on GitHub, so you can git clone in your terminal the code from this tutorial. You will also need to install Selenium, so you can go to the tutorial I have here. in the README form, we have the links. You will also need to install requirements.txt. So basically what the requirements.txt is how what all the package that I have installed right now for this tutorial, but I would recommend that you set up a virtual environment before you do so, because if we look at my requirement.txt, it's I didn't do in fact myself, I did not do the virtual environment before setting up the tutorial. So if you pip install the requirements, you will install everything that I have right now when you only need like 2 or 3 packages. So basically that's just either set up a virtual environment or install Selenium and Requests separately. So yes, what we're gonna see, it's a few simple scripts to use Selenium and the request module. Then we're going to learn how to respect Robot.txt, because it's very important to respect Robot.txt when building web crawler. And after, we're going to learn how to log into a staging site with Selenium, and a few two bigger projects that we're going to dive into is checking redirects errors with requests, and then making a Robot.txt alert system to alert you for the change when the Robot.txt changes.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. That's great.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's dive in then. So the first step, I just want to show you the structure of how I build code. Everyone write code differently. So the first line here is a shebang. So it just defines what is my environment I'm using and which version of Python I'm using. Then I have a few comments to start the script to tell what the script is doing. This is super important, because as you start writing code, you start forgetting stuff, why you wrote code. So you could add more comment. You could say not completed, for example, so you can remember that you don't want to use that version. And then I always tell who I am.
Let me add a couple of comments. So first thing is that you're using Visual Studio Code, right? Because a lot of people, when they use seeing their tutorials, they might be familiar with Colab. So Visual Studio Code is, to run it when you're running the code in your own local machine, which makes a lot of sense when you're, doing browser automation. It's a lot more practical to run it on your computer, where you can actually see what the browser, if you run it without headless mode, you can see what it's doing. And these comments that you're mentioning, they're named doc strings, right? So that's how you documentation strings that tools can parse and extract information, like you're using a structure, right? There. Does that make sense? So
yes.
So I don't know, Elias, if you want to add anything to that, So if you have a different IDE that you prefer, might be PyCharm, there might be other tools when you're doing it locally. Right.
So yeah, my favorite is VS Code, obviously. The reason why I'm using VS Code, and PyCharm would be a good option too, is because like you said, when you automate your script, you want to have a .py script. Notebooks are good to document stuff, but just to run on your own computer. But you can, like, running a notebook on cron is not the best thing. I'm not even sure if it's possible.
When I develop on my local computer, I prefer Visual Studio Code. It's really convenient. Yeah. You have a lot of plugins. If you love editing in BI mode, not sure how many people love that. There's a plugin for that stuff. So it's really cool stuff. And you can run a notebook. The Visual Studio have a plugin for that.
And I'm going to show you, I've built a notebook as well during this tutorial to show as well. I want to showcase a lot of stuff in there. So yeah.
Yeah, so Elias, you unmute yourself. So do you have any comments?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, let me hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, nice. Great to be with you guys.
Yeah.
This idea was great actually for to document stuff, which I think they call your future self.
Really?
To your future self 6 months later is going to come and say, what the hell did you write here? Why did you do this? So it's great to document things yourself. I use PyCharm a lot, but I've been using VS Code very much recently. It's very light, and the Jupyter Notebook implementation is very nice in it. It's very easy to use, and open source. And actually, there's a lot of GitHub is actually using it now online with code spaces. So they have this.
I didn't know. I need
Yeah.
to check. Yeah,
So
that's
good.
it. Yeah.
It's good to be familiar with it because it's open source, and many companies are using it online as an IDE online. So it's a very good thing to get familiar with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I actually started using VS Code because of my current colleagues that showed me how to use it, and yeah, I got hooked. It's a fantastic tool, and as you said, being able to move from notebook to .py script as well, but also the GitHub integration is really easy to do. Like if you want to clone a script, all you do is Command Shift P and you say git clone, and then you clone the URLs that you want to do in this case. So it's really easy to integrate, so you don't need to go into the terminal and learn all the Git programming language, and it's quite convenient.
yeah. So yeah, so let's continue. I don't want to take too much of your time so that you
Yeah, it's good. I like that. I'm glad that Elias has joined.
Thank you. Very happy to be with you.
So let's get going. So I'm gonna go. So the other part I have is I always tell who I am, because colleagues, they might read the code at some point and say, who the heck did that? How do I work it? So they can contact you. So this first line is actually the the biggest feature of all programming languages, is that when you use programming languages, you can call code that other people have written. So the code could be like 200 pages long of code, and you can import all that code into a single liner and then start using all that code that other people have done. So now you're standing on giants and you can build stuff on top of it. So that is the import request. So you import the request module. Before you can do that, you need to pip install the request. And then what I'm saying is I'm defining what page I want to extract. And I'm also usually always defining the headers, because it's a good thing to say what is your user agent. It's good practice to tell the developers that you're scraping their website. They want to know who you are. And if you're scraping them too much, they might want to slow you down. And you can give this opportunity to slow you down at some point by defining your user agent. But you could also do fake user agent if you want, and do whatever you want. But I prefer being a good citizen of the web and building stuff that people can control on their end, because it can be quite heavy on a web server if you start scraping millions of pages in a single day. So then what the structure, the basic structure of the request is only this line. So basically you're saying, I want to make a get request to the URL we define, and I'm telling what headers I'm using. I'm sending the request object to the R variable, and then I'm surrounding the request between a try and accept lines. What this does is it just says, if the request has an error in it, just raise the error and exit the system. And then I'm printing statements. So print statements are the best friends of anyone who start programming, because you can print stuff and see how it's going. So it's going to print into the terminal what's going on. And to run this code, so here I have numbered script. I never do that. I just do that for this tutorial to be able to see it in an order, but I never do that because it's quite painful to run the code with numbered things like this. But anyway, I wanted to just tell you. So to run this code, you just use the Python keywords and you write the name of the script. So that's how you, so I am in the terminal right now. So this is one good feature of VS Code is that I can open the terminal straight from VS Code. I don't need to leave the interface in order to run the code. So right now I'm running the code. What is going on is it's requesting the page I gave it. It's returning the HTML with this line. Then it's printing the URL that I scraped and the status code. So these are these 3 lines. So that's a very simple script to help us understand later on what's going on. In order to run Selenium, Selenium is, again, it's an automated browser. So to run Selenium, you still need to define URL, and then you define your instance. So we will need to define a Chrome WebDriver instance. It could be Firefox as well. It could be another browser. And then we define where Chrome driver was installed. And what this line is doing, it's creating a driver object that you can use to get the URL. I have a very difficult time saying URL, a page. So we're getting the page, and then we will print the HTML, wait for 3 seconds, and quit. So let's see what's going on if we actually run this.
Yeah, and it's cool that you're running on a Linux machine, right?
On Mac.
Oh, okay. Because I saw the path. Yeah, I use a Mac as well.
So this is what's going on. It's opening a browser, it's opening the page, waits 3 seconds, then it closes. Once it closed, what it did is it printed the HTML of the terminal. So right now it's doing mostly nothing. It's just printing stuff into the terminal, but we're gonna see a little bit more what we can do. So this is not so convenient because what you do, you are opening the browser, you're seeing what's going on. But if you want to automate stuff and run a cron job or start a web crawler, you don't necessarily want to always see what's going on. You don't want to open each page and see the visual browser. The way you can go around that is by running Selenium headless. Headless will mean that the page will not open. It will run in the background while you do whatever you want to do at the moment. In order to run Selenium headless, you need to import the options. And what we're going to do is we're going to do, again, use the options class to create an object. And then from that object, we're going to define options headless equals to true. And then we're going to tell that into the Chrome WebDriver instance. We're going to define the options here. There are other options like you could define the window size or other stuff. But right now, we're just touching headless. Then we're getting the page, waits 3 seconds, get the title, and then print the title. And in the end, we're quitting the browser. So there is another way that we can run code in VS Code is by selecting line by line. So you could just select your line and press Shift Return. What it's going to do, it's going to open a Python interpreter. And basically, it ran the code from the Python interpreter. And you can see that the URL was assigned to the variable URL. So this is what the equal sign is doing in Python. It's saying assign this line to the URL variable so you can call it later. So now we have run this. Let's run the headless browser. So right now it's doing exactly the same thing that it did in the past. It's running, but right now we're not opening the browser. So we can see that the title was returned, but we never saw the browser open. It's dangerous. You all not dangerous, but you have to be careful. Always quit your browser when you do that, because before I run this line, the browser was still running in the background.
Yeah, I think I saw something similar when I was automating Chrome to run the URL inspection tool. I had to exit it at the end of the session, otherwise it wouldn't work correctly.
Yeah, it causes those some kind of weird stuff as well, because as long as it's running. And also one thing that we see is that the terminal and the Python interpreter are running separately from on the other. So if you're running the same code here and you make changes, changes might not happen here. So it's just, yeah, if you're running both together, we're gonna see later what it can happen, but you can run both together and run different code in the terminal and in the Python interpreter.
Good question. Is the 3-second time dot sleep for demonstration purposes, or you're just being kind to the server, or?
It's for two things: demonstration purposes. If you load a web page that takes massive time to render, if I have a website that renders in 5 seconds, I will not be able to get the title either. So when you do it, like it takes a lot more time to run Selenium than to take a request as well. So that 3 seconds sometime, but I always put a time sleep of 1 second. I like adding some throttling. I like adding sometimes, because there is really no reason to crawl a website very fast, because you don't usually need to crawl an entire website either. So I tend to be very respectful when I'm building web crawler, because it's yeah, we don't need. I used to crawl website very fast, and I saw all the problems that it caused. So now I'm a bit more conscientious when I'm doing it.
Great. And these are some of the most optimized pages for the keyword Python SEO. You've done a great job doing that, better than all of us.
Yeah, no, and you do Python for SEO. You see,
we should trust this guy. He knows what he's doing, right? When he talks about Python and SEO, he knows what he's doing. He's on page number 1 for that keyword. Respect.
Yeah. No, and JC, what happened with emojis? I saw that you had, in the FAQs, you had some emojis for each one, and then they were gone, right?
Yeah, it got to become my signature mark. I see that after I posted this, I saw like at least 50 agencies that went all in on that. It's actually, I copied that from a website in Africa that were doing this, and they were hiding it pretty well from Google. They were doing some kind of shady stuff around that, and I brought this to the table, but Google caught it pretty fast, because all a big marketing agency went in and did the same. And I think just Google starts seeing probably conversion rate was lower in the end.
With all these emojis, right?
Yeah. I had fun, at least. It was pretty good. Yeah. So
yeah, let's continue.
Let's continue. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check Robot.txt. So I said respect. It's important to respect Robot.txt. I'm going to check it before I fetch a page. You can do that either with advert tools from Elias that we have right now, or right now I'm using Rapid Robot. I don't want to get into a contest. I just thought this one was a bit more easier for this exact use. So I've separated the code that people have wrote to the code that I have wrote. So this line is content from that module. So you can also import your own module into your code. So you don't need to build like a 2000 lines script. You can split that into smaller subset of script. The reason why I put some content into functions is because those are functions that I use for a lot of projects. Like create a project, when I don't have a subfolder created, I use the create project line, and then I can delete that one. We're going to see a little bit later what's going on. But yeah, I have code that I use all the time. So I put it in a separate script and I call it from other way. So what's going on in this script is I am taking this domain, I'm taking all the URI, and I am creating a list comprehension in order to combine the domain to the URL. So we're taking the domain name plus the URI for each URI in that list. So what is the result is a list of URLs. It seems a little bit like doing some work around, like I'm combining domain to URI, and then I'm combining URI to domain with this function. The reason is because I wanted to show list comprehensions, because it's amazing. A list comprehensions, you can actually combine stuff like this, and it's really one of the most useful features. It's the for loops. So I have created a bunch of functions in order to run. So when you have a function like this, if you just select it, nothing will happen. It's just you created a function that does that, and then you need to call it in order to be able to use it. So what is this function doing is it takes the URL we give it, and it gets the domain name from it. And then it takes that domain name and it adds Robot.txt at the end in order to get the Robot.txt URL. Once we have this, we go through a parser. So we're using the repi robot here. We're using it in order to fetch. So we're making a HTTP request using the robots fetch to the Robot.txt. And then it's really simple to say, is the URL I'm giving, is it allowed by all user agent? If yes, print get the validation. Then this function, what it does is exactly the same thing as this script. It's just I put it into a function. So it's getting the title of the web page using Selenium. And at last, I have a main function that will run Selenium if the validation. So check the validation. If we are allowed to get the URL, we are using this get title function to get the title of the page. If not, we are saying the URL is blocked by Robot.txt. I use the term colored function in order to do something that I think is pretty cool, is that it's printing into the terminal in color the line. So right now, when I'm building a web crawler, I can say, I'm opening that page. This one has a 200. Oh, this one is blocked by Robot.txt, so I'm doing nothing. And this one is still green.
Wow,
So,
that's really cool. That's really cool. I've never seen that. Have you seen that bias before? That's really interesting.
I think, yeah, a few times. I've never tried it, but it's very nice to. It's very nice. Well, if you don't have too many reds.
yeah. But right now it's only print, and also like usually I just want to print because I wanted to make it like clear. But what you would need is to append this to a data frame, and I didn't want to go too much into that because one of the things that I wanted to talk about was mostly this for loop. The for loop is usually one of the hardest thing I think that was, and we discussed about that.
Yeah, we talked about that. So we were talking about the learning curve, Elias, and it's for marketers, right? There are a couple of roadblocks to learn these, transfer their knowledge from Excel with sheets into a programming language. And typically there is the custom functions, because you're used to use functions in Excel with sheets, but here you're defining them. That's kind of like a small bump. But the bigger bump, the bigger obstacle is learning the loops, right? Because you're not used to that logical way of thinking about these iterations. And when I get asked, I said, look, just print out, every step. So just limit the collection to maybe 5, 10 elements, putting the limit on the collection, right? And then print everything so that you see that the machine is actually doing what you think it is doing. And when you print it out, you say, wow, it's not what I was thinking. And then you start learning, it sounds like that was the same approach you were taking as well, right?
Absolutely. Jason. It was at the beginning, because I don't have an engineering or programming background. It was, difficult to, follow these detailed instructions. I'm used to talking to humans and say, get these and take them and put them there, please. And that's it. But, as you said, the computer does what you said. It doesn't do what you meant.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So you see, yeah.
So basically when I'm doing a for loop to understand better, so I have this list of URLs. So to make sure before you start building your code, in order to learn the for loop, so basically what it does is I'm always starting by making my for loop and printing what I think it's doing. So that way I can see that if I run only this line, I can see that, okay, yes, it looped through my list of URLs and it printed each URL as I wanted to do. So this way it's a good way to start understanding, because as you're making more for loops into other for loops, then you will really need to use those print statements in order to find yourself into your code. So there is another line here that might be confusing for people, and I just added it yesterday as a resources after our discussion. So if the if name equals main function, what it does is it's not that complex. So basically what it does is if we look here and we run that module, what it will do is it will print the name of the module, and it will so let's look at what's going on. In fact, it's going to be easier. So we can see that it printed that line and say the module is main. The name of the module is main. So we're saying that if the name of the module is equal to main, run this. Otherwise, for example, if it's not equal to main is when you try to import it. So if I try to import that module, it will run the code here. So if we look at this and we import it, we can see that the name of the module is not main anymore, it's if name. So it's the name of the module that we have here. So in that case, when we look here, the name is equal to if main. So it's not equal to main. So this doesn't get printed. So it's a good thing to do that, because you don't necessarily want to run the code when you import it. You just want to import one specific functions to be able to use it. So this is why you see this in a lot of code. So now you can understand a little bit more complex terms in Python. So now I have a notebook. So this is what we were discussing. I don't use notebook anymore, but I use them a lot to learn, because they're really convenient. Because when you want to run a line of code, you just press play and that Python notebook is running. The reason why I'm not using it is, as we've discussed, I find Python script more convenient because I can automate it easier. But when you do tutorial, where you share some code, you can use Python notebook. And in this case, the reason why I used it is because I thought it was convenient to split my code in really succinct sections.
Yeah, and I'll add a comment, because I use both, and I spend more time in the notebooks because of the exploratory aspect of the notebook environment, where you can explore an idea. You have this idea and you start running experiments to try to figure it out. And for example, you guys like to use comments. What I do is I leave the errors. When I'm testing ideas in my notebook, every fail attempt, I leave it and I open another cell and I try something else. And that leaves a breadcrumb trail of the things that I tried that didn't work out. And when I find something that works, I also include the Stack Overflow links or the sources when I found the solution, right? So essentially, it's like it leaves a trail of how I got to the actual solution to solve it. And then because I might forget it later, and especially when I'm writing tutorials, I say, wow, I tried this and I tried that, it didn't work, but I
Yeah.
have it documented.
And Elias gave me that advice to code into Notebook as well, because he said it's really easier after that. You just copy that and you got a blog article as well. So it's
Yeah.
good when you're a blogger as well. And for that breadcrumb trail is still, yes, it's good. And as you see, I still use it sometime, and you can use Markdown to write comments. So it's really convenient. It's just that, yeah, I tend to think it's too long to run line by line like this.
Can I just add one point,
Yeah.
please? There's this interesting concept called literate programming, which is when you are programming for another person. You're explaining to me, this is what we're going to do. This is what the script is going to make. This is how it's going to run. This is why we're doing it, and so on. And between those descriptions, you put some code that does this.
Yeah.
And this is how you do a tutorial. And many times, many of the things that I created or the functions that I made, they started out as a tutorial. Let me start this, let me start this. And at the end, I'm like, wait a minute, this can become one function, and this becomes a thing on its own. So explaining things to other people and making sure everything is clear makes your programming, makes your code even clearer for you. And this could be a technique to adopt as well. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
No, and the
Nice.
value, I tell you, the other value is that you both are marketers and also developers, right? They communicate, the ability to communicate clearly complex technical concepts, and how things work and why something is one way or the other is incredibly valuable because, as you know, marketing, business, and technology are siloed in most organizations, big and small. Different people, one person goes technical and gets into the weeds, another person gets into the business side. But there is a big gap when you're able to communicate, effectively. And that process of writing tutorials to try to, just the process of breaking things down simple enough that you can communicate it with clarity is amazing. And that's one of the main motivations that when I write in my columns is I get to learn, I get to get into the technical side, I get to understand it clearly. And then when I explain it, is that I learn, right? I learn, that I know that I learned it correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's the same reason why I started blogging, because I was writing script and I was forgetting how it worked, and then you have like 2, 3, 4, 5 days work that you just 2 months later you don't remember how to use it. So I started blogging to write to myself how to run each line and make it simple enough. So after, like, when I come back to that article and I don't understand one thing, I update it because it's obvious that someone else don't understand it. So yeah, I think it's good for yourself as well to write and blog about what you're learning, because you learn twice as fast.
Exactly.
Future self, watch out for your future self.
Yeah. So yeah, let's get going. So what this script is doing, we're gonna see so there are a lot of dev environments. So I've just made some example on how to log into some kind of dev environment using Selenium. So you're not necessarily need to go to an actual web page in order to run Selenium. You can run this in dev environment, and we're going to look how to run it even on a local file. So if you're building your own, for example, you start programming and you build your own web page like this, and you just want to open it using Selenium. So you can see the browser, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to open it on Selenium, all you need to do is to create a URL using this file path. So what you have here is an F string. So this is one of my favorite features of Python, is that you basically, what the F string is saying is the path that I have here, add it here, the file name, add it here, and then that's the actual string that I have. So this is a structure to make to use Selenium into a local web page. So if we're running Selenium now, we're going to see that it's going to open the browser, wait for 3 seconds, and then close back that local web page that I have. If you want to run it, for example, on a local host server, so if you have a local server with XAMPP, or you use Python and build a Flask app, so you can also test using Selenium on your Flask app. So what Flask is it's basically a Python framework that you can use to build a website or an app. So it's really simple. I'm gonna show you a little bit later what it does, but basically I'm gonna cd, so I'm going into the folder right there, and then I am running the Flask app. So what this is doing is it's creating a server instance locally. So if I go to that web page, I will see the web page that I have. So to run on local host, you can do the same way as you would with a normal website. You just define your local host as the URL. So you just, what it does is it will open, and what the app is doing is it asks me my username and my password, like you would have a gateway with a dev environment. So if you get to your dev environment and you try to log in username and password, that's what we're going to see how to do. So right now we ran that on a local file. We run it Selenium on a local host file. And now if we want to log into that local host, the form that we had, all that we need to do is define the username and password. So this is the structure. We used to have this URL, but the way to add this password and username into the pop-up that we had, we define the user column password, then at, and the URL where you want to go. So if we run it, now what's going on is it's going to tell me, yes, you are logged in. So right now I'm in my staging environment and I'm ready to do any kind of automated test from there. So this is only one example. Sometimes you have like forms that you can fill in. If you go on my site, you will have other example of how you can fill forms, but it's always that easy to log in. The only thing that I find complex with Selenium is logging in any Google tools, because they have some gateway that understands that you're an automated browser. So there are lots of additional steps to go and log into Google tools. Yeah, and I want to go into security here, because as you get starting with writing programming code, you're going to have some situation where you added your password here, and then you're going and you start working with GitHub and you're saying, okay, I'm going to send that to a GitHub account, and I'm going to share that with the world. I want people to see that. I want to give them access to my code. And what you find out is that you have logged in your password, and it's a painful process to remove this from the history of GitHub. So what you should do, basically, what I'm doing at least, is I'm creating always the credentials, the JSON file, and I'm adding a JSON with my username and password. And then I am using the JSON module to read that password, and then I have my credentials. So I don't need to import it. The other thing is, if you're using GitHub and you decide that you print this and you're using a notebook, be sure that you
No, but you skipped a step, right? So you create that JSON with your credentials, but you never send it to your GitHub, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna see that in the next. So yeah, so basically always use a git ignore.
The GitHub ignore to ignore the credentials. Exactly.
Yeah. So right now I put
Yeah, another way that you can do it, especially when you're using GitHub Actions. So when you're trying to run something directly from within GitHub, is that you can create secrets. So you can create secrets within GitHub, and then access those through the environment variables. So you can set these credentials as environment variables, and then you can read them from the environment. So that if you're running in locally, you can set those in the environment, right? So that they're in the
Yes.
environment, and then you can read them from there. That's another alternative. Or when they're running from it could be from a cloud function, or it could be from GitHub Actions. Those running environments can set environment variables so that you have in there. And that's a better approach to manage.
And it's entirely true. And the reason why I'm not doing this, it's usually to make it easier for people, because those
Mhm.
environment variables are complex to not that complex, but are more complex to grasp as concepts than just a
Mhm.
JSON that you load into your but yes, and also like just creating new credentials and storing in AWS and calling this. There are many ways of doing things. This is not the most secured at all, but what I find out is the thing
No,
that
it
is the
works.
less,
Yeah, it
huh?
works. You have it in the
It
ignore
works.
file.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely
And if
works.
you want a template for your Git ignore files, it's just I put this and you can download it from my site. It's this one. It's just removing everything that I don't need. And also before committing a notebook, make sure that you always clear, because if you commit this function, this is gonna stay printed in GitHub, so you need to clear
Mhm.
the console before you commit something to GitHub. So it's really important. So these are the three basic security tips that I think everyone should know before starting using GitHub.
Mhm.
Good
Yeah.
ideas. Yeah, very important.
Next thing, we're gonna go into more fun stuff. Okay, so what we're doing is we're keeping the Flask app open, and what we're gonna look is how to make a redirection report. So we're gonna scrape a few pages and we're gonna try to see if there is an error in it. I want to showcase two things in here, not just scraping and making a web crawler, but also how Flask is great for testing. So if you're building your own web crawler, you probably won't find a single website with all the kinds of errors that you have in the world. But what you could do is create a very basic Flask app, so very simple lines, and you could say, okay, redirect, or okay, send a 404. So it's really, really simple. I don't want to dive too much into the Flask app. I just want to let people know that this is an option. You can create your own very basic site when you're building your crawler, and you could create some HTTP to HTML conflict, and you can create a bunch of stuff, and then you crawl that site that you've created, and then you know that your crawler is working because you've created your own website that is just completely filled up with errors. And that's basically what I did. So I made a website that returns a 200 page, a redirectorial one, ones that have 4 redirects, one that makes a loop, canonical loop, one that times out. So so you could add as many situation as you want and make your program even more robust, and one day you find a new situation that you never encountered and you recreate it in your Flask app, so that way you build your crawler and make it even better.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I like it,
S-
especially
eh,
that Flask is also minimal, as you showed. That, like, I just want to emphasize that this page is the website. It's very simple and minimal, but I was also wondering about how I can do it, and I might borrow some ideas with your permission for testing,
Absolutely.
crawling, and stuff.
And also, one thing I found is really good with Flask is you can deploy a Flask app for free using Heroku. So you can also look that into my blog, how to deploy on Heroku, but you deploy that for free. And then you can validate that website into Google Search Console. And that's where you can start testing stuff. So I made this, I had a wild idea at some point that maybe some words were creating sub 404s, and I tested that. I created an app that was a complete copy of the website that I had, and I just changed a few words, and here you go, the sub 404 was gone in Google Search Console. So the Flask is a powerful thing that you can start building to test your own SEO hypothesis, and you won't need to go to your developer to test that hypothesis. You can build it yourself, test it, and then you reiterate faster. So yes, so what is doing? So it's going to check the redirects. Okay, so that website, what it's doing is it sorry, I'm moving too fast. It crawls a list of URLs, count the number of redirects, check if it has a redirect or a canonical loop, and reports on error. So let's run the entire script in order to make it easier for people to follow through what's going on. So basically it goes there, it fetch the pages, return a status code, return whether it's indexable or not, and return the canonical, and then it's fetching the other page. If there are redirects, it reports on the redirects as well. So this in itself is what is going on, and in the end it returns a colored data frame like this. And so what it does, it returns the start URL, the destination URL, what is the status code of the destination page, how many redirects it went through, was that a loop or not, what is the canonical, and what kind of error have we encountered. So this is just the starting point, but like after that you can start building and just adding features. You just look at Screaming Frog, you try to do what Screaming Frog is doing, and by the same way you're making your crawler more robust. So right now what it's really doing, we have two functions in this script. I have one function that all it does is it makes my data frame into colors, and the other function that what it does is it starts by creating an empty data frame with nothing in it, and then it loops through each of the URL in my list here. In order to understand how this works, for example, I could have made a loop like this for URL in URLs, and that would have worked. However, in this case, what I want to is I want the integer as well. What is the number of this? So what is this line in the loop doing is basically it takes the length of this. So there is 6 URL, and then it makes a range from 0 to 6. And then for each of those integer from 0 to 6, it prints the integer, and then it prints the URL. So this is how the loops is going. The reason why I use this kind of loop in this case is because I want to append the data frame after each iteration using the flog. So basically if we just forget about the loop, but what I'm saying is the URL number 0 here, add it to URL variable, then fetch the page using request, and then at the location 0 and column start URL, I'm saying take that URL that we have here and append it. So the first loop, I am appending this one, the next one I will be appending this one, and then like this. Then what I'm saying is if the type of the response is equal to string. So in order to understand that, we need to go to the definition here of the code. So this code comes from the function.py code here. How I made my request is I'm saying make a request. If it times out, time it out after 3 seconds and allows redirect. But if you have an error by making the request, just print the error as a string. So basically we would have a request object here, and if it doesn't work, we would have a string. So in this case, I'm saying, sorry. So in this case, we are saying if the type of the response is a string, so if there is an error, print the error. Then go into your data frame, your empty data frame, and add the response error to the error type column here. So at position 0, if there is an error, position 0, if there is an error, add the error name. And in the destination URL, instead of writing the destination, write there was an error. That's what these two lines are doing. Then, if the error type is equal to too many redirects, write that it was a loop and define the number of redirects as being 30. So the reason why that is because usually requests will stop after 30 redirects. And if you have 30 redirects, even if it's not a loop, there is something that you should work on. So, yeah, I define it as a loop. Yeah. So this is one big block. So we have defined the start URL in the data frame, and then we have handle the error. Else, if there is not an error, what we're doing is we are adding the destination URL again into the data frame, and we are adding the status code. What happens here is you can see that when you make a request, the response is not the page that you requested. The response is the page that you landed on.
Mm-hmm.
So it will not, if we request this page, the redirect 301, it will not return a 301 redirect. It will return a 200 because the status code is the landing page status code.
Yeah, if it's 200, but if it's 404, you get the 404 as well.
Yeah, if it's 404, it's gonna tell 404. So this is what's going on. And this is the power of print statement, because you can understand what your code is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, if I fetch the 301 redirect, you would have a 301 going to this one, and then I have a 302 redirecting to that one, and then it returns that status code for this page. Nice. So this is what is going on. And then the next thing that I have is the reason why I have these line printed is because of this loop. So requests give you the possibility to look at the history of what happened. So right now it just told me there was a 301, another 301, another 301, and basically I'm just saying for each element in the history, print the response and print the header of the location. So where is it redirecting to? So this line could be removed. It's just for me to print it there to know to showcase how it works. But where it's important is we want to look at the length of this history. So if I'm taking the entire history and I'm looking at the length, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is the line that I need to use in order to define that this had 4 redirect in the loop, and this is the length of history that told me that there was 4 redirects. And since there was no error, I'm saying there was no loop. Okay. Oof. So yes, it's big, and that's how you can understand how what Elias have built is massively complex. This is really basics, and if you want to go more complex, you're gonna find a lot more challenges than just what we're seeing here. But you're learning a lot as well. So to understand the next step, we need to define. So we have defined: is there an error? Are there some redirects? Now we need to define if there is a canonical loop. And in order to find out what's going on, I will actually open the canonical loop web page that I created.
Yeah, you see, we need to start wrapping up because we're over time.
Oh,
So
okay.
can probably be less detail on the walkthrough.
Okay,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So yes, absolutely. So how long do we still have?
No, we're over time, so let's try to see if we can wrap it up.
Oh, okay, good. So the canonical loop, what it does, okay, so we can wrap it up. So for the canonical loop, we're checking the status code, we're checking the canonical tag from the landing page, and we are returning using, so we are returning a tuple like, oh, it's gone. My print statement. So we're returning a tuple like this saying there was no canonical found, or it checks the canonical. And if the landing page canonical is equal to the URL we get, then we are saying that there is a loop. And in the end, what we're doing is we're sending back a CSV file here in the output using a redirect reports. If we look at the next script very quickly, what it does is basically, let's run this. What it does is that there was no robot.txt called. So basically, I was looking at the URL here. I was looking at my web page, and I created a folder with my robot.txt. And if it doesn't change, what I'm saying is there was no change. In case the robot.txt changed, then what I'm looking is at this web page, and what the web page is doing, what this web page is doing is it's creating a new robot.txt each time. So it's using Flask to do this, and basically I am saving a new robot.txt. So now I created a new project with my new website, and anytime it changes, it tells me that it was changed, and it saves a new version of the robot.txt. One line that you could change instead is going to using request and post to Slack instead. So it's very simple. You just switch the print line to that line, and you can learn how to do that on the blog post that I wrote yesterday. So this is good. We skipped this one. It's all written here. I posted it yesterday so we can follow through with the everyone if they want to learn how to do this robot.txt. Yeah. It's sad because I wanted to go through, but anyway, that's it. So do you want? So I'll let
well,
you.
you can run it at least so that we see the output. You put the work.
So yeah. So when I run it, so anytime I run the code, so basically it outputs a new robot.txt file and tells me that the robot.txt has changed. If you want to run it on Slack, all it says it will send to your own Slack the same message saying robot.txt has changed, and saves a new
Do you
version.
have a demo showing it working on Slack? Or?
Yes, I can actually go to.
Yeah.
It's just because I didn't save my credentials, so I don't have them at hand. But how it looks like if we go to this tutorial, we can look very quickly at how.
Yeah, so basically you're, yeah.
So it's return. Oh, it's not. So it's returning something like. Do I have an image? I don't have an image. I will. Oh yeah, it's returning this in Slack. So it's just returning. It will return the sentence. So the only thing that I would need to do is to get that hooks from Slack. Everything is detailed here. You get the hook, and once you get the hook, you approve that, and it will send automatically to your own Slack. And it's really easy to alert yourself that way. And then you can run a cron job. So if you want to learn how to run a cron job to automate that, you can also go here and somewhere in the documentation, I have how to run it on Windows automatically or to run it on Mac automatically.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So
And we have
yes,
everything in the GitHub, right? So all this code is there.
all the
So
code is there, ready to use.
yeah,
Yeah,
this is
all you
some,
need is to clone it.
yeah, no, this is an incredibly deep dive. I think you went deeper than I would typically do as well. So that's amazing. You did an amazing job. Elias, any final comments on this? What are your thoughts?
Extremely organized and very well documented. I'm sure your colleagues like working with you.
Yeah, this is
I'm learning a lot. I have an amazing team with me. So, yes, I have a friend who's working with Julia instead, and he's doing powerful stuff too.
Oh,
But,
cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Julia,
Yeah.
that's an awesome language. Yeah, so Brittany, you want to take it? You want to take the presentation and show the next webinar that we're gonna have? This is the last for the year. So really, please, thank you very much, JC. Thank you, Elias, for co-hosting.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, we have some. The first one for next year is gonna be in collaboration with OnCrawl. So we're gonna be hosting Corey. Amazing SEO, done some amazing work. So it's going to be about how to record search and analyze algorithms with Python. So really, really exciting. He had like 5, 10 different ideas, and we're just having a hard time. All of them really good. Trying to picking one of them, right? So we're going to take a break for the holidays, and then resume mid January to start with this tutorial. And we're going to have host Elias is going to be hosting. We have and a number of other brilliant hosts that are going to be helping me on that. So we have Charlie, Brittany Mueller. We have a good number of them. Really good guys. Greg. So thank you very much for joining us. And Brittany, you want to show? We're going to get this tomorrow, uploaded. And you're going to find it on our YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe. We have a growing list of amazing, brilliant work, different members of the community, really good stuff. And, JC didn't, disappoint at all. Amazing work. Joining the Hall of Fame of Snake and Fire, SEOs.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you. So, yeah, that was nice to be here with you. Thanks for the amazing work you're doing.
Yeah, no, likewise. You guys are, making me proud. It's been worth it to push this Snake and Fire in the community. Okay.
Yes.
So have a great one. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.